Charlie Kirk leaves feminists absolutely speechless. He ties their tongue, metaphorically, with just one question. Guys, this is gonna be a good one. I think you're gonna enjoy it. If you're not familiar with the Whatever podcast, it's a show that brings on a lot of women and also some men too, and often the talks revolve around dating, relationships, things of that nature. So it obviously gets very controversial and it's tons of fun. I think you're gonna enjoy it. I know I enjoyed it myself. So we're gonna get right into it. But first, everybody, please make sure you like our video, share it around, and you know it's coming, subscribe to the Resist the Mainstream YouTube channel. That way we can keep pumping out these great videos for you guys. We really appreciate it and thank you so much. As always, I'm your host, Darian. Let's get into the video.
So then for those of you that said you were feminists, do you see any inconsistency between saying that you want equality, but you're cool with sending men to run into machine guns to protect your society? Does anyone wrestle with that?
How do you reconcile that? Yeah.
I didn't say I was a feminist.
No, I know, but
it's
some
definitely
did.
mental gymnastics, right?
No, but what I'm getting at though is that it's easy, and I know that you have all been so polite, but let's just dive right into it. It's easy at times to bash the patriarchy. Taylor Swift just today was one of her songs, F the patriarchy, and everyone in the concert screams that, right?
Can we Google that, Nick? Yeah.
Well, it's a lyric to one of her songs. It's some
okay.
like name tag that was dropped, but she says it like a rallying cry, like F the patriarchy. When it comes down to it, it's like you're cool throwing men to the front lines of war, but not yourself.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think the third wave has happened? Do you think it's revenge? Do you think it's a mind virus?
Well, I think it's...
What do you think?
It's a great question. I think that it is a idea toxin where we have really denigrated having children and staying at home for a lot of women. And some women, that's the right path. For some women, it's not the right path. But for a lot of women, it is the right path. And there needs to be an ideological reason as to why you don't get married and you don't have kids for the vast majority of the population. And they developed feminism, where they said that for young women, becoming a CEO of a shoe company is as fulfilling as having children. And for some people, that is true. But for a lot of people, that's just not true. And you look at the way Gloria Steinem wrote the feminist mystique. It was, I feel as if I'm in an open air prison, being a stay-at-home mom, barefoot and pregnant, basically, being in the kitchen. And it started this whole push, which is where we are the same as men. And that's the problem with third wave feminism, is that it ties with the trans movement, is they don't believe there's any sort of biological differences between men and women, which we all agree is insane, right? That men and women are made completely differently. And yeah, I think it's an intellectual and ideological cancer that needs to be crushed. And I think deep down, most people don't even believe it. And the draft argument actually, I think, really draws that out, where when it comes down to it, most American women are okay sending men to war, which you should be, by the way.
Do you young ladies, like if you feel like you say, I'd like to marry and be a stay-at-home mom and not work, if any of you would say that, I don't know, do you feel like other people would shame you, that you get more social clout by saying something else?
I think it's praised right now to be a stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
At least from my social circles.
Interesting.
Like
that's a new phenomenon.
Before we do move,
You hear what Charlie just said about the open air prison thing that feminist wrote? Just disgusting. Can you imagine that wanting to revert to your biological tendencies of wanting to be nurturing, that somehow makes you a prisoner? What a sick and terrible thing to be pushing on women. I will say, this focus on third wave feminism, I find it kind of weird, because oftentimes the premise of saying, oh, third wave feminism is bad, is to say, well, the first wave and the second wave, they were all good and dandy and fine and great, but now the third wave has gone a little too far. Really? Is that really the case? Because let's look at Margaret Sanger, for instance. She's considered a first wave feminist. What does she do? She opened the first abortion clinic in America, Planned Parenthood. What else about her? She was a eugenicist and a white supremacist who hated black people and wanted to eradicate them. She also, by definition of what she was doing, was very intent on ending motherhood, and has succeeded for millions and millions of mothers and their sadly no longer alive babies. So I don't know about the whole third wave feminism thing. I think it was bad from the very beginning. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments.
That's a new phenomenon.
Before we do move on, I'm not going to allow... Hold on. I'm not going to allow you guys to weasel your way out of Charlie's question here. So just show of hands, who of you guys said you were feminists? I believe you, and then you. Oh, come on, don't. reel it back here. So both of you said you're feminists, but you also said you're not in favor of women being subject to military conscription. It occurs to me that feminism, in the most, I guess, generous definition I could give it, is a movement towards equality. That's not honestly the definition I would give it, but to be charitable, I'll give it that. So how do you...
Davis donated $300. Kirk, I'm a fan, but stop that corporate nice Christian boy facade.
Being too nice.
America is on its last leg, being overrun by illegals and degenerates.
Oh, wow, okay.
A time for being nice and a time for war. Now is time for war.
This is Burger King, guy.
This is Burger King. It's Mike Davis. All right, Mike Davis. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
That's why men should be in war.
Yeah.
A woman would never say that.
Because they...
It's time for war. I've never uttered that phrase in my life.
No, that's a very...
It's almost as if she thinks men and women aren't equal. What does equal mean? What does equality mean? It means the same. Men and women are not the same. If you get offended by this, you have one of two issues. A, you're an idiot, or B, you don't understand the English language. That simple.
Smart point, actually.
And so, back to my question, those of you who consider yourself feminist, how do you reconcile being a feminist, being for equality, but also not being in favor of women being subject to forced military conscription the same way that men are? Go ahead.
Because the feminism isn't just feminism, as in if you're a feminist, you have to agree with every single thought and every single idea that every feminist pushes forward, like the draft, for example.
Well, it's not clear to me if that's a feminist, like specifically a feminist position.
Well, then if I'm not a feminist under your eyes, then that's fine. I just...
Would you acknowledge, though, that would be a pure equality between men and women?
Yeah. If everyone
So you're not
got
in
drafted,
favor of
that would be-
equality
Yeah.
when it doesn't stand to benefit women?
Yeah, but again, I never pushed for 100% equality within feminism. Not
So
every
you only
feminist
want the
believes
equality
that.
that benefits women?
No, I want the equality that benefits humanity.
Okay, so can I...
Like,
can I
as a
interrupt?
society.
No, okay, so if that is... Are you guys then okay when you find out that women might earn less in the workforce than men?
Yeah, if it falls under that same
you're consistent,
benefits humanity and society, then yeah.
Time out. Okay, I'm gonna have to somewhat disagree with Charlie there. This idea that men make more than women, it's really not true. Is it true on the aggregate? Yes. If you divide the median earnings of women over the median earnings of men in America and times that by 100, there is a wage gap, as some call it. I call it the wage myth, that men earn more than women. Guess what? You put the controls in, women actually make 8% more than men in 147 out of 150 of the most major cities in the United States, according to a study that was put in a Time magazine article. I'm not joking about that. It gets even more extreme. You look at the city of Atlanta, for instance, an average of 20% more earnings. For the same type of work, women are earning more than men. So here's where I say, where's this woman's oppression everyone keeps complaining about? I mean, it's obvious that they earn less than men on average because they very often work less. They choose to go to child rearing and motherhood and have a husband work instead. Oh, the horror. Imagine that. So evil and sexist and bigoted and terrible. Nuclear family. Yeah, we're gonna sit here complaining about how women don't have it. They don't have equality. And then to the point about the war thing, men can get drafted in war, women can't. Okay, and fun fact, one of the first feminist movements was about the right to vote for women. Something that many don't know and that's conveniently never taught in history in our public schools is that actually the majority of women were opposed to the right to vote. Why, you may ask? That sounds crazy. Did they just hate themselves? No, it's because the right to vote came with, well, it wasn't a right back then, but the privilege to vote at the time came with the obligation to enter the draft, to serve in the military, to go and potentially be blown to pieces and die for your country. That's why. But these facts are, of course, seldom never taught because we have this hyper-feminist narrative about, well, man bad, woman good, woman so oppressed, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? The chickens have come home to roost. A lot of men are noticing it and they're getting tired of it. I can say this firsthand just from conversations I've observed in my own life. So we're probably gonna see a cultural turnaround in the next few years. And you heard that here first.
I mean, I think women should be, if the women are doing the same exact job and producing the same exact amount, quantity, and quality of work, I think they should be paid the same.
Yeah.
But generally, that's not the case.
You're right. Yeah, the law, you can't discriminate based on sex, but usually there's a lot of other factors such as where you went to school, what you studied. So yeah, I'm just trying to flush out the consistency or lack thereof here.
Yeah, I don't ever think it's men versus women. It's like masculine complements the feminine. So I think the new wave feminism, if they're talking about, hey, women are better than men, that's like the dumbest thing that you can ever say. I think women complement men, which goes back to your, draft concept.
Well, I'd like to ask you another question here. Do you think women should be barred from volunteering for the military?
No.
Well, that's interesting. They shouldn't be barred from volunteering, but they should be barred from being forced into conscription despite men being forced into potential conscription. I'm a little confused there.
Sounds like she doesn't think men and women should be equal. And therefore, she probably isn't a feminist, if that's how we're defining it. And that's how most people will define it today, whether that's correct or not.
Confusing about that.
Well, why would you, if you're fine with women volunteering, why would you object to women being forced?
I feel like we made so many points on why women shouldn't be in war. Do I have to go over them again? I can.
Did you make points? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I did actually. Like, for example, a woman being sent out to war. Well, actually, let's use her example. That was one of the best ones. If we send half women, half men to war, and we lose an incredible amount of population, what would it be of the country and our workforce?
All right, guys, so we had to cut that off because it just goes on and drones on for a while. And frankly, it's not that insightful. I do promise you that, but you can always check out the full episode if you're curious. One last parting thought on that. I think there's a point to be made about how women are completely against being forced conscripted in the military draft, yet they want to have the political power to send men to war. Nikki Haley, also known as Nimrata Haley, total neocon warhawk. Point being, if you're going to sit here and make political decisions that involve men potentially dying in order to defend, say, a foreign nation like, I don't know, Ukraine, for instance, I don't know, maybe you should have to put your you-know-what on the line. There's something to be said about that. And if you don't want that risk, well, it goes back again to, should you be able to force other people to take that risk? Food for thought. With all that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning into the video. We really appreciate it. Please be sure to comment below, let us know what you liked, what you want to see coming up, and we'll see you guys again soon. Thanks so much, and God bless.